How much water did you drink today? Is 8 cups of water really a one-size-fits-all? Will drinking more water improve your health? All of this and more on today's episode of The Secret Life of Numbers.
Welcome to the Secret Life of Numbers podcast, the podcast where we dissect everyday numbers and statistics to find the stories behind them.
Each episode, we take a number or statistic and break it down. We will tell you where it comes from and what it means for you. Along the way, hopefully we will inspire you to think about the numbers in your own life.
I'm Levannia, your data scientist on call. I'll be breaking down the numbers.
I'm Lindsay, your data translator, for when Levannia gets too technical on us. I'll be breaking down the rest.
All right, let's jump in. As our opening question suggested, we're talking about drinking 8 cups of water a day. And this is kind of part of what we're calling our 8x8x8 mini-series, because we were talking about the eighths of our lives, like sleeping for 8 hours, working for 8 hours, now drinking 8 cups of water a day.
Yeah, it's funny that so many things in our life, they revolve around the number 8.
Yeah, we're not sure why. It's curious.
So, Lev, do you tend to drink 8 cups of water a day?
I don't know, because I don't measure it. I mean, I have a water bottle that is about a liter that I fill up every day, and I do drink that. But the thing about 8 cups a day is it's often called colloquially the 8x8 rule. So it's 8 cups of water, 8 ounces each, which translates to about 1,893 milliliters, or approximately 1.9 liters of water. So it's almost 2 liters of water a day.
I just remembered the funniest story from when I was a kid. So that 2 liters, oh my God.
Okay.
I forgot this happened until this very moment.
All right, hit me with it.
So when I was in grade 8, all the grade 8 French immersion teachers at my school had this challenge for us kiddos to drink 2 liters of water every day. So we all had 2-liter pop bottles that were emptied, obviously, of pop, and we filled them with water. And we had to drink that entire thing during the school day to get a star next to it. The reason that I'm laughing so much is that it kind of backfired, because they were not happy that we had to go to the bathroom like 100 times during the school day. It became so disruptive. So in grade 8, I was tiny. And 2 liters is like the recommendation for like an adult. And so myself, along with pretty much everyone else in the class, we would be like chugging our water so that we could get the gold star. And I think there was a prize attached or something, or maybe like a bonus percentage on our schoolwork. And I remember they like had to sit us all down and talk to us and be like, you guys are going to the bathroom too much. And I just remember talking to my parents. My parents were like, this isn't healthy. Like, the 2 liters of water a day is like meant for an adult. It also includes like, what about if you drank the water before you got to school? Or what if you eat fruits and vegetables that have water in them? Or what if you have a cup of juice at night? Like, that all counts towards your 2 liters. And it was this whole thing of 2 liters of water. And it was just taken to an extreme.
That does sound like a funny moment. But you're right. This 2 liters of water, or this like 1.9 liters of water a day, which is like approximately 8 cups at 8 ounces each, it's kind of hard to trace back scientific evidence that supports this. So I did a bit of digging, and I don't think I can find anything.
So you're saying that my pop bottle 2-liter challenge when I was in grade 8 was based on Flim Flam?
Well, okay, I'll tell you what I did find. So in an article that I was reading, they said that the closest reference to like scientific evidence for this was an obituary on the renowned nutritionist Frederick J. Stair. And he was an expert on the topic of thirst. And in the obituary, it stated in part that Stair was an early champion of drinking at least 6 glasses of water a day. And a former colleague of Dr. Stair, Dr. Elizabeth Whelan, found the following passage in a book that Dr. Stair co-authored with Dr. Margaret McWilliams in 1974. And I'll read that passage to you directly. So it's how much water each day. This is usually well regulated by various physiological mechanisms. But for the average adult, somewhere around 6 to 8 glasses per 24 hours, and this can be in the form of coffee, tea, milk, soft drinks, beer, etc. Fruits and vegetables are also good sources of water.
Okay, so our source of information is an obituary and a random passage from a book.
I mean, so there's also in 1945, the Food and Nutrition Board of the National Research Council wrote that a suitable allowance of water for adults is 2.5 liters daily in most instances. And an ordinary standard for diverse persons is 1 milliliter for each calorie of food.
I don't know how I feel about that. That seems, it's like 1 milliliter per calorie, the silver bullet.
I don't know. And like there has been a lot of research since to see if there's something to this 8x8. And really, there's no real like scientific proof that we must drink at least 8 glasses of water a day. Also, there's no scientific proof that drinking 8 cups of water a day is harmful to you either, with the exception of like some diseases. I did look up some like recommendations of like adequate intakes of water published by both European and American health organizations. So this is average intake of water. So this includes plain water plus beverages plus food moisture. So for example, you and I are women. So the European Food Health or Food Safety Authority says about 2,000 milliliters a day. And then the National Academy of Medicine in the United States says about 2,700 milliliters a day.
Now, what if you drink more? Like, is it, if we drink more, are we suddenly going to have like clear skin or clearer skin and like...
I mean, that's certainly what the influencers say on Instagram. There really isn't any clear evidence that increasing the amount of water you drink will have increased health benefits.
This is what I learned in medical school as well. There's a lot of things that happen with the kidneys. It's a very complicated like physiology. And the kidneys are the ones that are responsible for making urine in our body, right? So the blood that circulates in our body gets filtered through what's called the glomerulus in our kidneys, and the pressure in that in those vessels pushes out water and solutes and all sorts of things that are in our blood that get filtered by the kidneys. So we take up some good things, we dump out some things that we don't want in our body, and there's also this fine tuning of solutes, so like sodium and potassium, and all of these processes are affected by different drugs, and it's an incredible system. Hard to learn about because there's a lot going on. But with the nephrologist, which is like a doctor that specializes in, kidneys and really all of that physiology and the medical management of like disorders of the kidney, they were like, I see a lot of you drinking in class right now. Do you not trust your kidneys? And basically, the recommendation was kind of like, you should drink to thirst.
Okay.
Assuming you don't have something like diabetes insipidus, where your thirst is pretty much insatiable. So you'll end up drinking way too much water. But for a healthy individual, you should be drinking to thirst. So if you're not thirsty, don't drink a bunch of water.
Okay. Like it's not going to give you any added health benefits.
No, and like a good guide to use of course, always talk to your doctor. Like if you're taking some medications, you might want to adjust your fluid levels, or if you're older, your thirst mechanism might not be quite as sensitive and everything. So always talk to your doctor about this. But a good kind of rule of thumb that you can use is if your urine is more clear, it's a good indication that you're hydrated, right? So if it's like really, really yellow, you should probably have some water. Yeah, but I thought it was funny that the nephrologist was like, do you guys not trust your kidneys? It's like, I do, but I also come from a time where I was forced to drink 2 liters of water in 6 hours.
Old habits die hard.
I just kind of drink to thirst now, like if I'm thirsty. But I don't know if you've noticed this, but I'm back at school in person, but we all have to wear masks, which is good to keep everyone safe. But I've noticed I drink so much less water when I'm like working and I have to wear a mask, because it's just like, it's just another layer, and like depending on who's around you and distancing and who else is wearing their masks.
I have noticed this as well. Like the few times where I've gone into work in person as well, because I typically work from home now, I've noticed that I'm drinking less. We have rules surrounding like taking your masks down so you can drink water and like how to do that safely. But a part of me is just like, if I am not thirsty, and like I'm not going to add that to my experience in the office.
Yeah, so I find I kind of camel up, like because camels are able to survive in the desert with like they store their water and everything. So I like drink a lot of water before I go, and then I drink a lot of water when I come back. But it's like sporadic. There's no guarantee of water drinking in between. So it's interesting that we've kind of found an absence of studies that are conclusively like 8 by 8, meaning 8 cups of 8 ounces of water a day is exactly what you need. And what I was curious about is like, what are kind of organizations that are public facing and giving information to the public? What are they saying? So I went to the trusted CDC, or Center for Disease Control. I'm just talking about like daily fluid intake, and what they say, which I think is so important, is that your daily fluid intake recommendations are going to fluctuate and vary based on your age, your sex, whether you're pregnant, if you're breastfeeding, what your activity level is, what the temperature is outside, like if you're sweating a lot more. And there's no recommendation for how much plain water adults and youth should drink daily. But it's important to know that daily fluid intake can come from food, it can come from beverages, like we've been talking about, and plain water, just like tap water, bottled water, is a really great way of getting the water that you need without kind of extra things that you might not. Like, for example, if you drink like a lot of pop or soda, there's a lot of extra sugar in that, and it's not saying that it's bad to have that once in a while, but if that's your main source of water, it might not be helping you as much as you hope it does.
Yeah, it's coming with other things.
So in terms of, how are we doing with our water consumption? They looked at from 2005 to 2010, how are people in the US doing with their water consumption? So they found that youth drank an average of 18 ounces of water a day, and between 2011 and 2014, so a slightly different time range, adults drank an average of 39 ounces of water per day. So a little further off for our youth, but we expect them to drink a little less water because they're smaller generally, but also possibly more active. So it would depend.
Yeah, that's true, because it's so variable.
Yeah, but 39 ounces is a kind of a far cry from what we would expect, which would be 64 ounces a day if you're doing the 8 by 8.
Yeah, that's true.
And they also found that some of the factors like associated with lower water intake is if you're older or lower income or lower education.
Okay.
And I think that just kind of plays into social determinants of health, right? Because it all intersects, right? Like maybe you don't have a job where you're able to drink water.
Or you can like take breaks to drink water.
Exactly. But they also found that in adolescence, those who drank less water also tended to drink less milk, which is important for calcium, for building those strong, healthy bones, as well as a source of vitamin D. And they also eat less fruits and vegetables and drink more sugar-sweetened beverages and get less physical activity.
Okay.
This is like a case of correlation, but drinking the water that you need to, part of your overall health.
Yeah, I guess if you're drinking water, you're not drinking soda in that moment. Like it's kind of replacing potentially things that could be bad for your health or not be good for your health.
Exactly. And just modifying it based on, like, if you exercise a lot, you should be drinking more water. And if it's really hot and humid out, you should be drinking more water. And if you, like, have a fever, you're sick and you're vomiting or having diarrhea, like, drinking more water is important.
Yeah, to replace your fluids.
So this episode, we've talked a lot about water and how important it is for your overall health. But one of the things we haven't talked about yet is how important having access to clean drinking water is. And we know that this is a problem globally. We're in Canada, and it might be easy and tempting to think that this isn't a problem in Canada, where we have one of the world's largest sources of fresh water. But this is still a problem in Canada, particularly in Indigenous communities. So right now, according to Water First, which is an NGO all about bringing awareness to and solutions for a lack of access to clean drinking water in Indigenous communities, 13.5% of First Nation communities in Canada are under a boil water advisory, which means that to drink the water, to use it for like personal care, like brushing your teeth or something, it has to be boiled first.
Yeah, and has to reach like a certain temperature, like 100 degrees Celsius.
For a certain amount of time, too, so that it can be used safely. And this is especially a problem in Ontario, where 40% of First Nation communities are under a boil water advisory. And this isn't something that's new. In some of these communities, this boil water advisory has been in place for 40, 50 years.
Which is like astonishing, really. That I had no idea it was in place for so long.
I think it's really disappointing, too, because it's like the fact that it's been so long. Where's the urgency? Like, this is an urgent issue. Like, if people in downtown Vancouver, downtown Toronto didn't have clean drinking water coming out of their faucets, that would be like public agenda item number 1.
Yeah, it would be addressed very quickly. I guess this might be one of those times when we ask our listeners to like have like a call to action, kind of like what we did in our sustainability series. This is something that we know is a problem. And if it's something that you care about, you should perhaps consider like contacting your MPs and your elected officials and letting them know that you want these issues addressed and things that you want to see worked on during their term.
Yeah, it's something really important, and it's something that did come up in the debates in our most recent election in Canada in September. But it's something that we need to hold our policymakers accountable for, and we need solutions that are sustainable.
Agreed.
We'll have more resources in our show notes about this issue here in Canada, and resources to help advocate for change and hold our policymakers accountable.
All right. Do you know what time it is, Lindsay?
Time to plant our science seed.
It is. So each episode, we like to give our listeners something to think about, a science nugget to help you think more critically about the numbers, statistics, and really the science you hear every day. So this week, we're talking about variance and variability. So as we discussed throughout this episode, the amount of water you should be drinking is really quite variable, and it depends on many things, like your age, like your sex, like your level of activity. And the term variance in statistics and mathematics refers to the statistical measurement of the spread between numbers in a data set. And more specifically, variance measures how far each number in the set is from the mean, and thus from every other number in the set. But you can see this as kind of like giving you information about the spread of your data. And when you think about how much water you should be drinking every day, it really is also quite spread from day to day. It's variable. There's a variance to it.
Yeah, like we talked about, like
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be things within your own life that create a need for variance in your water intakes, like activity levels or weather, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also going to be that variance person to person of how much water do you need.
It's really drinking to your own thirst, as you said before.
So I guess the overall takeaway is to trust your kidneys.
I guess so. Thanks for listening, everyone. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. You can find the references we used for this episode in our show notes. A special thank you to Julian Bertino, who does our sound editing and music.
Do you have a burning question about something that we talked about this season or even last season? Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts with a question, and we just might answer it in our Burning Questions episode at the end of season 2. Until then, you can follow us on Instagram at The Secret Life of Numbers.
We'll catch you next time on The Secret Life of Numbers, where the numbers can run,
but they can't hide.